Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. This time I'm going to go over my green-yellow Broly deck that you guys saw in yesterday's gameplay video against Janemba. A little bit different video format style this time. I just thought I would change it up a little bit from the typical like Shenron's Lair kind of view. Make sure you go check them out though if you guys need any deck building tips or just want to look at the card list. Check out SCR.com, but I kind of wanted to change up the format this time because I used to do these types of videos when the channel first started, like the live deck profiles, and honestly this deck is just super nice looking, which you'll see as we go through the profile. So I kind of thought I would change up the format. So here we're gonna go through my deck profile. I'm gonna tell you a bit about how to play the deck, and I'm also gonna go through some combos, mostly the SCR combo, if you guys don't know how to perform it in this deck. So this is gonna be really like a play tutorial and a play guide. So real quick, we'll go over what the leader does. So the leader, he has an activate main once per game. You can search a 1-drop Frieza Army card. And there's actually some targets in this deck that you might not see in typical lists. So I'll go over those in just a minute. He can awaken at 4 life, untap an energy, and draw 1. And Broly Evo Unleash. So there's actually a ton of restrictions on this leader. Even though a lot of people view it as busted, it's kind of limiting to the deck, but it makes it very fair. Like I've talked about before, I posted a mono green profile for this deck a few months ago, and the deck is super fair. Like even though you drop the A-drop on turn 2, or you could potentially drop the Seeker on turn 2, if the opponent knows how to play around it, that's not really gonna matter. So the play guide's also gonna kind of serve as a way for you to learn how to not play into the SCR, because your opponent has to play a very specific way for you to be able to drop the Seeker and then turn 2. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So he's got a permanent that says when you control 2 battle cards, you cannot play any more battle cards in your battle area. Auto Sparking 7, which kind of restricts him from playing Overwhelm. You draw, when he attacks, you draw until you have 6 cards in hand. And activate main once per turn, you get to choose one of your guys and one of your opponent's guys and KO them both. Just so you know, if your opponent's guy has barrier, you cannot choose it. Just a fun fact about the leader, because the choosing is the cost in the leader, so pretty important to know. We'll get into the main deck now. So we got 3 1-drop Brolys, and we'll go through the whole basic Broly lineup here. 4 drops, 4 6-drops, 4 8-drops, and 1 SCR Broly. So I only played 3 1-drops. I don't think you need 4 1-drops. I also play another card that acts as copies 4 and 5 of the 1-drop, and your leader can search it with the once per game effect on the unawakened side if you need it. So you always start with it. There's never really gonna be a situation where like all 3 of them in your life. You need to play 4 of the rest of the chain though, because you just need to see it. And the 8-drop especially, because your 2-drop Paragus, which we'll talk about in a second, can't search your 8-drop from the deck. You can only grab it back from the drop area. So that's really important. And then we have the SCR as well, of course. You can drop this as early as turn 2. If you're at 1 life and one of your 8-drops or higher gets killed, you get to play it for free. And then the 1 life effect is if you're at 1 life when this attacks, your opponent loses their whole hand. And that's not once per turn. So this thing has dual attack, double strike at 40k. So when you attack with it both times, your opponent will lose their hand. So any cards they pick up off their life when this attacks, they're just gonna lose it no matter what. Typically what you wanna do is you wanna sit on the 6-drop as long as physically possible. And then like if your opponent forces you to, you go into the 8-drop. Why is that? Well, unless you have like all the cold bloodless in the world to protect it, because this is a Frieza Army leader, you don't want to be in a situation where you get greedy, you go into the 8-drop, like maybe turn 2, turn 3, and then your opponent answers your 8-drop with just, because it doesn't have barrier or anything, so it can't really be protected outside of like cold bloodlust. So if they answer it, you have no board, right? So you don't want that to happen. You want to sit on the 6-drop as long as possible, unless you really need to like get the extra double strike in, or unless you need to like kill something with barrier. So that's kind of the way I play the deck. It's a more conservative way to play it, and it's a way you don't get blown out to like Dimensional Banisher Fu, because a lot of people are playing that right now. So we got the 4 2-drop Paragus. You absolutely need this card in the deck. It just fixes your entire hand. You know, it searches any Broly you're missing except for the 8-drop, and it also brings the control mechanism out of the deck for you, which is the way you go right from your 4-drop into your 6-drop. So on turn 1, you're gonna play your 1-drop Broly, and then you're gonna attack with it, whatever. Turn 2, you play the Paragus. The Paragus is gonna pop off the 1-drop, then you're gonna search either the 6 or the 4, whichever one you're missing. And then after you resolve that effect, after you bring the 6 or 4 into your hand, you can play the 4-drop from your hand, right? And then you have the control mechanism on board as well, so you can pop off the 4-drop after attacking with it, bring the 6-drop into play. So that pretty much sets up your turn 2 6-drop, and you kind of want to sit on the 6-drop like I mentioned before. Only 3 field spells, because again, like you're almost always going to have at least 1 in deck for this guy. You don't want to draw too many because it is a dead extra card, and this deck does play a ton of extra cards, which is another reason why the deck is like pretty fair in my opinion. So we got 3 of Paragus to sacrifice, in my opinion. It's really all you need. I really don't go into him too much, but if you already have the 1-drop in hand, you can grab him with the leader's once per game effect, which is kind of relevant. It helps you like make the SCR plays. It's a good card in general. Helps you go up the chain when you need to, like in later parts of the game. And then I play 2 Infernal Emperor Frieza. So he's another Frieza Army target. You can search the leader once per game because he is a 1-drop green Frieza Army. He's also like copies 4 and 5 of the Broly 1-drop. So this used to be the 1-drop Ba that basically summons the 1-drop from the deck. But I cut the Ba for this guy because when you play the Ba, to bring him out, if you want to put yourself to 1 life, you kind of have to go through an extra step, right? You need some other way to pop this guy so that you can go to 1 life and then drop your secret rare if that's your play. But this guy just takes 1 life and pretty much skips that whole thing. Like, you don't need to go through an extra ordeal of popping it to take another life, right? And the bot also lets you restart your chain from the 1-drop, but I found that never really comes up ever really at all. I play another card to restart the chain if my board gets answered. So this card has actually been really good so far. And it's also when you go in for game, you can just play it down and take a life and just get more cards out of your life and then just go for game with more cards. So pretty solid. I like it a lot over Ba. We got our 4 super combos, super standard, and only 2 Tragic Awakening. I would probably play a 3rd, but the deck, like I said before, is pretty heavy on extra cards. But 2 is really all you need because, like, if you're just attacking, comboing into a 6-drop attack, let's just say, and then attacking with your leader's Awaken side, you're going to turbo through a ton of cards in your deck. So really, I think 2 is all you need, and maybe you side a 3rd if you feel like your board's going to get cleared. But 2 is pretty solid. But the thing is, like, on turn 3, you have the option of playing this card where you can, have 2 6-drops on board or like a 6 and 8-drop, but it's going to cause you to tap out on turn 3, which for a lot of decks have somewhat high kill potential on turn 3, especially if you're only at 4 life with 6 cards in hand. You might have 2 Broly pops, but not having access to your Bloodlust, not having access to your negates, sometimes it's not worth it. So if I'm going to go for an aggressive play where I want to drop 2 6-drops, I'll usually hold this for turn 4 if I haven't killed them already. So just the way I play the deck, I really don't like tapping out because you do have powerful effects with popping your opponent's board, but at the same time, you're pretty fragile if you have a ton of extra cards in hand and no super combos. So something to keep in mind. 4 Shocking Death Ball. This is 4 of my 8 negate attacks in the deck. I think you need to play the deck really defensively because, like I said, if you just have a handful of extra cards and only like 1 or 2 Broly pops, especially only 1 Broly pop, you need to be able to stop more attacks. So I kind of play this deck more controlling than aggressive, to be honest. So now we'll come into the yellow package. 3 Cold Bloodlust. This is, obviously one of the best cards in the entire game, just stopping effects. It's one of the only archetypes that can do it. But I only played 3 because, once again, the deck's very extra card heavy. I side deck the 4th one for sure. There's just some matchups where this card is pretty dead, so I think 3 in the main deck is fine. 2 Battering Laser. This card is super good in this deck for a few reasons, because for 1, it's Battering Laser, but for 2, let's just say you attack with your 6-drop, and your opponent wants to negate the attack. You can go Battering Laser, discard some dead yellow extra card in your hand, and then when your leader swings, it's just going to refuel those cards. So Battering gets like some extra value in this deck for that reason, so I think it's really, really good. 3 Frieza Call. This might be a lot. I know a lot of people play 2 of it, but I think it's just so important to see your 2-drop Parius on turn 2 specifically that I really feel like I need 3 Frieza Call, and with this amount of Frieza Call in the deck, I really never brick, which is super nice. Any extra copies, they just get charged. They're really nice looking energy. But realistically, on turn 2, you do want to charge a yellow, so that's fine. You have a good amount of yellow in the deck. This deck plays 12 yellows, and it's also a ditch for Battering Lasers, so I think it's fine. I think it's a good ratio. And then the final 4 yellow cards are 4 Master Roshi, Forged of Will. This card actually got a lot better, in my opinion, because I just found out the ruling that even if you do have 2 battle cards on your field with the leader's restriction, you can still negate an attack with Roshi, and it'll just go to the drop area. And the reason for that is because playing the card into the battle area is not the cost. The only cost in the card is the 1 yellow energy you have to pay for it, and then after that you resolve as much as possible. So resolving as much as possible would be just negating the attack, and then the Roshi would go to the drop area. So that makes this card infinitely better in my opinion in this deck, because a lot of times you're gonna have the yellow up, and if you don't have access to the Cold Bloodlust for defense, you're going to want a negate attack, because like I said, a lot of decks can go super wide. Think of like Skillless, think of Veggies. When they're going super wide, you only have 1 pop and 1 Shocking Death Ball. The extra negate is super, super clutch. So I really like this build. I think the build is very, very solid. So now I'm going to go over some of the play lines and some of the combos. Alright guys, so in this part of the video, I'm going to show you guys how you can basically kill your opponent with a turn 2 secret rare. So you're going to have the secret rare in your hand, because it's not really searchable in this deck unless you play the 1-drop Broly from set 1, which is a tech option, but I don't play it in my build. So basically your opponent has to play into this combo very, very specifically in order for you to do it, but if you do have your opponent that's playing into it, it's basically going to automatically win you the game in most scenarios, unless they have like Time Magic or Mafuba, something along those lines, right? So this is your turn 1. Let's just say on your turn 1, you play the 1-drop Broly, you pass turn, right? Your opponent goes next, they play their turn out, whatever, they attack you, and they put you to 3 life, let's just say. So 1, 2, 3. Them being aggressive with you, they might think they want to just kill you as quick as possible before you get your setup, but if they put you to 3 life, they're pretty much setting up the thing for you. So when you go back to your turn, you're going to untap, You're gonna charge, ideally a yellow. If you have like battering or something, it doesn't matter too much, but yellow is typically the best. So for this to work for the rest of your hand, you have to have the 6-drop, you have to have the secret rare, you have to have an 8-drop, and you have to have the Paragus. The Paragus actually can replace the 6 or the 4-drop because you're gonna play it and search out whichever one you're missing, but in this scenario, we've got the 6, the 8, and the secret rare. So, going into the next turn, you're gonna attack with the 1-drop, see what they do. You're gonna play the 2-drop from your deck. You're gonna search out the field spell because that's what the Paragus does when it comes into play. So we're gonna grab that from the deck. Next up, you're gonna sacrifice off the Broly and the Paragus, put them in your drop area. Once you do that, you're going to grab whichever piece you're missing. In this case, we're missing the 4-drop, so you're gonna add it. The Broly's effect's gonna trigger, you're gonna put yourself down to 1 life. So now that your secret rare is live, if you're able to summon it, which we will be able to, and then from there, you're gonna summon the 4-drop from your hand. Next up, what's gonna happen is, you're going to attack your opponent with it, see what they do, whatever. You're gonna use the field spell to kill it off, and you're gonna draw a card off the field spell, and then you can summon the 6-drop right from your hand, right? So now we're getting places. So you're gonna awaken with the leader, you're gonna untap a green, you're gonna draw a card because that's what your leader allows you to do. Next up, what you're gonna do is, you're going to attack your leader, see what they do. Next up, you're going to use your leader's effect. So for this to work on turn 2 specifically, your opponent needs to have basically a guy for you to pop with your leader effect. So we're gonna do that, we're gonna kill off the 6-drop, and we're going to discard 2 cards from our hand, 1, 2, and then we're gonna play the 8-drop from our hand. So this actually requires an extra combo piece that we do need to have. Luckily, our leader's unawakened effect can search it, so you do also need to have either a Frieza Call, in which case you don't tap the yellow, or you need to have the 1-drop Paragus or some other way, maybe another field spell, to pop off this 8-drop, right? So now we attack with the 8-drop. At this point, we've swung for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage, and that's not even counting any damage or self-awakening they did on their own turn. At this point, you can combo anything you want in your hand because once we play this guy, we're gonna kill off the 8-drop, we're gonna draw another card, and then we have to discard our entire hand to play out the secret rare. So that's gonna require us to discard our whole hand, and we're at 1 life, so we're able to resolve the secret rare. The other OP thing is that once our leader swings, we're gonna draw it back up to 6 cards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is what we get off our leader swing because we dumped our entire hand to play the secret rare. We have the Sparking 7 activated, so we can attack with our leader and do that. And now when the secret rare attacks our opponent, they're gonna discard their entire hand. They're gonna pretty much be forced to take 2 damage unless they negated the attack or something. And if they didn't time magic you, if they didn't Mafubi you, he'll restand again and he'll deal, that at that point we've attacked for what, 10 damage? So that's pretty much gonna be game, especially if you're comboing into your attacks earlier to force them through. That's how you perform the turn 2 secret rare. So once again, just to recap, you do need a way to pop your 8-drop Broly. You need the 2-drop Paragus, and then you need at least the 4 or the 6-drop. The 2-drop will search the other one. And then you need, obviously, the 1-drop that you started with. You need the secret rare, and you need an 8-drop. So really, the 1-drop is searchable. Either if you start with the Broly or start with the Paragus, you search the other one. The 8-drop and the secret rare are the real non-searchable ones. So you need to open up a 1 of and a 4 of that's non-searchable. So this isn't gonna happen all the time. A lot of people will tell you that the Broly secret rare combo happens like Omega Ultra consistently. It really doesn't. You have to open up with a 1-drop, but then again, just keep in mind with the combo I just showed you, there's several different ways, at any point in the game, you can put yourself to 1 life. That's why I play that 1-drop Frieza. If you have any extra copies of the Broly 1-drop, just keep it in your hand if you're gonna try and play for the secret rare, if you have the secret rare in your hand. But it's not super consistent because you need to open this up in your first 10 cards basically. Hopefully maybe rip it off your life, things like that. But the thing with the deck is still playable without the secret rare. The secret rare just makes your opponent play in a certain way that's pretty advantageous to you. So anyone who knows about the secret rare combo is probably not going to be very aggressive with you in the beginning of the game. They might not even commit to a board in the beginning of the game. And that helps you out because you get to just play with a higher life total for longer. So if they know you don't have the secret rare, they might decide to be more aggressive with you, which is kind of unfortunate. So if you're going to play this deck without secret rare, you definitely can, but just don't be very vocal about the fact that you don't have it because it will tell your opponent basically to be more aggressive with you. So guys, this was the other thing I kind of wanted to show you about the deck, right? So this is what a typical turn 3 will look like. You'll typically have the 6-drop on the board. You'll be your opponent's turn, whatever. Let's just say you're right about to end your turn and you have the option of doing a few things. You can either tap out for Tragic Awakening, tap all of your energy, bring out another 6-drop, get another double strike, a swing in, and sacrifice 1 of your energy, put a ton of pressure on, and you'll be able to pop 2 guys during your opponent's turn. However, in a situation like this, I've got Tragic Awakening in my hand, I've got Cold Bloodlust, Master Roshi, a dead card, a negate, and a super combo. So basically, what I can do is either tap out for Tragic Awakening, or I can leave energy open for all these defensive cards, for Cold Bloodlust and or Roshi, depending on the situation. For Shocking Death Ball, where I don't have necessarily the option to take a life. I could if I wanted to, but realistically I want to stay at the higher life total as long as possible. And I've got a super combo to either cycle out this dead card, or I can use the Broly 6-drop effect to get rid of the dead card, and then, you know, pop one of my opponent's battle cards. So in my opinion, it's much more advantageous to, you know, not use Tragic Awakening this turn, because I don't want to tap out and then turn, what, 3 of my cards into dead cards in my hand instead of just 1 card. In this situation, I've got 5, or I guess I have 4 live cards. 1 is dead to ditch off the leader, or sorry, to ditch off the 6-drop. And in this situation, I'd rather not tap out for the Tragic Awakening. I'd rather wait until my 4th turn after my opponent didn't kill me because of my stacked defense. You know, I'd rather use up all these cards, you know, use them, and then my leader will refuel them essentially when he swings. And then I still have 3 energy in order to Tragic Awakening, tap all the green, leave the yellow up because I still have a Roshi in hand, kill off an energy. And then in this situation, I'll bring out the 6-drop for extra pressure and extra pops. You know, I'm not usually afraid to take this deck into the long game as long as I have, you know, comboable cards in my hand. But that's just the way I like to play it. So guys, I hope this guide was kind of helpful for you. If you're new to the Green Broly deck, if you needed help kind of figuring things out, I really hope this was helpful for you guys. Let me know in the comments below if you guys like the video. If you want more videos of this type of style, let me know that too. Let me know if you like the Shenron's Lair view better, or like the live in-person deck profile better. Let me know, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
What's up, Dragon Ballers? Danny Wynn here. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and maybe one day if you keep watching Joey's videos, you could play as good as me.